Nice today not having to wear gloves and even took my toque off. The breeze is still cool, but it's way more comfortable out here today with the sun shining. The guys I seen this morning at launch were headed out into Button, and they have a cabin out in the bay there, and with the kind of give you an idea of how nasty the winds have got. They picked up the one day there, I don't know when it was a few days ago now, and blew their cabin right off the and it's not on stilts, but it's on like big blocking kind of thing. And blew it right off and about 8 feet over from its original spot. Which is, yeah, pretty nuts. It's not like a huge cabin by no means, but it's not tiny either. Like, it's pretty crazy to think it blew it the way it did. So they're over there today, and they got about 3 or 4 guys, and they're gonna try to jack it up and get it back into its regular spot, and then I'm sure they're gonna try to figure out a way to secure it in that spot so that we don't have to deal with that again. I wonder too now, like when this time of year when the whales start to move out and head north, I wonder how many that we do see, if it's locals, like Churchill whales, or if it's some other belugas passing through from the other estuaries while they head north. I'm sure they kind of, as they cruise north, they probably stop and hang out in each spot, or maybe grab a bite to eat or something. Ooh, we're getting some big rollers now coming in. Spotted a couple belugas a little ways in front of us. Looks like adult and a juvenile. Maybe hearing some whistling down there too. Oh, there they are again, a couple, adult and juvie. They're still keeping ahead of us though. I don't know, it's tough to judge distance when you're on the boat out on the water, but they're quite a ways away ahead of us. 40 or 50 yards or something. See a few of them super close to shore right now too. They've been doing that a lot this year. Getting like right up next to the rocks here on Eskimo Point. A little too close for comfort for me at least. But there's a couple of them in there. I don't know if it's just a good spot to look for food, if they're looking for some cod or something. Yeah, we've had quite a few days where we're out here and they've all been bunching up around the shore. Oh, I see we had to do some translations. I guess, yeah. Toque is a Canadian word. Is it just called a hat or a cap? I always thought a toque was a toque. I didn't know there was any real other names for it. We got a good photo of a beluga sneaking up on the cam. Wonder if they still have the masons working on the fort right now. We had one of the park's summer students on the boat last week. We were talking about that a little bit. They're doing kind of 12-hour days, and I think it was 6 days a week or something is what she was saying. We have a sort of short window here in Churchill to get that type of work done. You're dealing with concrete and, well, even, you know, we've got to worry about freezing up obviously, but certain times of the year when we're not having to worry about the freeze up, we're still getting a lot of rain, and that usually will bring those sorts of projects to a screeching halt. And then other obvious complications like the tides. I was wondering, that must be tough getting them out there if the tides, because they're changing every day. So they won't always line up and be convenient for getting them out for a kind of a standard work day. It's not like they can make it out every day at 8 in the morning and then work straight through to the evening. Sure is a big project though, and it sounds like as they move their way around the fort, it's just going to be kind of an ongoing thing. It's going to just continue to deteriorate, I think mostly just because of ground heaving and stuff in the winter when everything freezes up and the ground moves around. That's never good for anything concrete. Concrete's got crazy high compressive strength, but doesn't do so good in the flexibility category. had Steve on earlier as well, and he was talking more about the history in the area, and I can't remember what he said. It was either 6,000 or 9,000 pounds, or is the weight of the cannons that they have at the fort. Like, I mean, you see them, they're huge, they're massive cannons, and they'd obviously be heavy, but that's hard to believe, 6,000 or 9,000 pounds, whichever it was that he said. That's, either one is, it's pretty impressive. That's crazy. And it's also crazy to think that if you're launching a cannonball out of that thing, that there's enough force pushing that cannonball out of the barrel that it's able to move that cannon, rolling it backwards. But it takes numerous men to maneuver that thing around, and then you just fire a cannonball and it pushes it back. That's pretty crazy. It's a big explosion. See the few belugas right up next to shore still. Hear them chattering down there. I see Jurgen posted their name for a toque. It's probably gonna butcher the pronunciation on this one. Pudelmutze. And that means, it looks like kind of translates, I guess, to pom-pom hat. That's what Greg is saying. And then in the US they call it a beanie. So everyone's got their own kind of term for it. Just looking here, there's a few birds. They look just kind of like snow buntings. And I've been seeing them now for the last couple weeks, but I wouldn't have guessed they'd be here this early. And it looks just like them, and I hadn't seen them all summer until, yeah, just a few weeks ago they kind of started to appear. And I've asked a few people when the snow buntings usually start to show up, and haven't really been able to get that one figured out. I guess I could probably look it up. They're cool little birds when you see them in the wintertime too. They're neat, kind of little white, sort of I don't know, it's just a real tiny little bird, but they're hanging together, and what I'm seeing too is like big kind of groups, big flocks. It's always interesting up here. You can tell the change of the seasons just by the activity, like the animals and the birds and stuff that start to appear. And thought I heard some noise. That boat that was at launch, they're coming back from Button Bay right now, or one of them is. So he must have dropped off his workers and headed back to shore. But yeah, you start to see, say the biggest one is the geese and the snow geese. They start to move in, and you know it's either springtime or it's fall as they're migrating through. Same thing with the sandhill cranes. And then you start to see a lot of the ducks, the pintails and mallards, and I think some of the sea ducks start to move through too. I don't really know much about them. I think there's like scoters and eiders. You were talking about to Tom, and they have I think the common eider is what we'd expect to see around here, and they're not anything too crazy looking. But then they have the king eider, That's the one that I'd really like to see. They're pretty neat. They got kind of a hump on their nose, sort of on their beak. They got some cool colors. It's a neat bird. And then, yeah, I haven't seen any terns. They thinned out big time, the Arctic terns. And then we'd see the odd one here and there, and now I haven't seen a single one for a few days. And then it seems like more gulls are showing up. And I don't really know my gulls that well either. There's way too many for me to learn. It's actually kind of crazy how many different types there are. I'm pumped to get out and start seeing the ptarmigan. And they're going to start making the change soon where they're going to go from the brown kind of color they are now and then start transforming back to white for the winter, pure white. And kind of in the middle of that transformation is when I think they look the coolest. I don't know about the spruce grouse up here, how much they change. I think while they're breeding, maybe the males might brighten up a little bit. The colors get a little more vibrant. I know at home that's the case for the ring-necked pheasant. They kind of keep their same sort of colors but become more drab when they're not. It's not mating season. But then they become, yeah, super vibrant. They're beautiful looking in the spring, and around May, June, I think, is when they kind of are looking to start breeding in southern Alberta. So yeah, they're just super bright, colorful birds. One thing I didn't know until a while ago, and I think it's a fact, but the upland game birds, so any bird that has feathers down on its feet, you'll see like the ptarmigan and stuff, they got feathers going down their legs, and then it's like they're wearing little snowshoes, fluffy little white snowshoes in the winter. It's pretty cool. But yeah, all upland game birds will have the feathers on their feet, I believe, and that means they're native to this area, North America, or just this area, and birds like the pheasant and stuff were introduced, and they don't have the feathers on their feet. Theirs look more like chicken would, where it's just the scaly kind of skin. And I think pheasants came from maybe Asia or something, I'm not sure, but now we got tons of them in Alberta. There's a lot of places that breed them and release them into the wild. We used to have a massive pheasant hatchery in Brooks. I think it's kind of still operational, maybe not to the large scale that it used to be. But they used to raise a lot of pheasant.